This is the Educator Wellness Series. This has been something that has been on our radar at Education Elements for a long time. Today is episode 1 of hopefully season 1 of this, and it's called The Pandemic of Teacher Burnout and Why We Need a Happy Teacher Revolution. And I have to introduce not only a good friend, but a fantastic mind within this, teacher self-care community, and it's Dana Thomas. Dana, welcome to our first session.
I'm grateful to be here. Thank you so much, Nick, and thank you to the entire Education Elements team and for everyone's presence today. 93% of teachers, according to a study by the University of Arizona, experience overwhelming levels of stress. So if we were to apply to this research, what's interesting is this study was actually done before the pandemic. So I would be interested to see what the numbers are in 2021, 2022. So if we apply these numbers to the US alone, that means that an estimated of the 3.6 million teachers in the US, that means that 3.3 million are stressed out, which means that an estimated 80 million children are sitting in the classroom or on a Zoom call with a stressed out teacher. We also know from research in Canada, that measured the stress hormone that we call cortisol. And at the University of British Columbia, they took saliva samples of teachers and that of their students. So what they found was that teachers with a higher level of stress have correspondingly students with a higher level of stress. Well, why does that matter? According to the research, again, from University of Arizona, they've been able to link teacher depression to low student math scores. And Yale Child Studies Center has found that early childhood teachers who are stressed out, burnt out, low job satisfaction are more likely to suspend and refer and enact disciplinary action on students of color more than white students and boys more than girls at a rate of 4 times as much. So therefore, if we're not supporting adult social emotional learning, mental health and well-being, we're not adequately supporting our students' social emotional learning, our students' academic achievement, and we're perpetuating the school to prison pipeline. And if that's not enough, it's just bad business. We're losing half of our teachers in the first 5 years. It's incredibly expensive, to the tune of $7.3 billion is spent in the United States every single year, 7.3 billion with a B, on the constant recruitment training of new teachers. We know that if teachers are burnt out, their quality of instruction isn't as strong, and it also results in less effective classroom management, decreased student motivation. When teachers are burnt out, students are stressed out, and you can feel the vibe. Like you can feel the energy when you walk into a space where individuals are happy and healthy and supported in terms of their social emotional. And kids are so smart and they pick up on subtle cues and they're seeing what's being modeled. And I think it's just so important that we again reiterate that when teachers are well, students do better. A teacher's working conditions are a student's learning conditions. When it comes to, what do we do about it? The approach has been all across the spectrum. So oftentimes the number of school districts might, attach a self-care like calendar or bingo card. And we love this for our Instagram. Like we think this is great. This isn't necessarily a systemic, measured, evidence and data-driven approach to supporting adult mental health and well-being. On the more formalized end, our EAP programs, which can be hit or miss and really expensive. So the sweet spot is right here in the middle in terms of providing opportunities for teacher connection on a regular basis. That's like not just the one and done, back to school, getting to know each other, but something that's done either monthly. We have folks who do this quarterly. In some of our sites with high incidence of trauma, for example, our Minneapolis revolutionaries, after the uprisings there, were holding meetings twice a week, bookending their week, Monday mornings and Friday afternoons. And even if folks couldn't attend the meeting, just knowing that the space existed provided a sense of safety. And when we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just for our students, for ourselves, it's important that our basic needs are met, as well as feeling safe. So here's one of the resources we use in our Happy Teacher meetings. These are adapted from Vicki Davis's 12 Choices to Step Back from Burnout. And we go over this in every single Happy Teacher meeting. So 1, I choose to be happy. 2, I choose to disconnect and detach with love. 3, I choose to be mindful. 4, I choose to make time for sleep. 5, I choose to get outside and get moving. 6, I choose to be grateful. 7, I choose what to overlook. 8, I choose the battles worth fighting. 9, I choose what to do next time, what to stop doing. 10, I choose to enjoy the relationships that matter. 11, I choose to schedule and prioritize what really matters. Yes. And 12, no matter how the school year started, I choose to finish well.
I have a few questions for you, Dana, if that's okay. What are some warning signs that people could be on the lookout for, both within themselves or for others, to just to continually build that community of practice?
So there's a couple different components. There can be burnout, which can happen to first year teachers the first week of school. That's not necessarily something that happens over a long period of time. It's the combination of both physical, emotional, mental exhaustion, but it can be reversed and interrupted. Compassion fatigue is something that is a little more serious because it's over a longer period of time. And it's an overall loss of compassion for self, for others. And that is something that we see more with our veteran educators. So for folks who are looking for warning signs, it can look like a physical exhaustion in the body, as well as apathy of just not caring about things that one once cared about, or even like having room for passions outside of work. So one of the things I suggest to folks is making sure that you have some type of creative outlet, some type of thing that outside of teaching that you're passionate about. It's something that folks need to make sure that they're carving out time in their day of. And if you look at your schedule and see that there's no time slot at all that exists currently, when you look at your week ahead for these types of things, that might be a sign that there needs to be, and consider what that looks like.
What are some things that we could do to help that actually hurt? Right? Are there ways that, sometimes we have the best intentions in the world, but we often maybe put the ownership on the teacher when it should be an us situation? Or what are some things that you just see that actually does not work too well?
The most succinct response is mindful communication.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, like I mentioned before, some folks approach to self-care is maybe sending out an email with like a self-care article attached at the end, or maybe a really profound quote or something like that. And then within the same email are all of the deadlines that are due by close of business tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes this thing where it's like, even if that article was fabulous and the quote was from Brene Brown, we love her, if it's also accompanied with messaging that doesn't align with those principles of well-being, then not only do folks probably not even open the email attachment to read the article, but they have a bad taste in their mouth about self-care well-being in general.
What are some high leverage, maybe low cost, low barrier to entry things that they could do, this week or start planning for in the near future that would, that you think that could really move the needle while they figure more strategic, systematic plans?
Look at your schedule again and carve out a well-being block for yourself. Whatever well-being looks like for you in that moment. Does well-being look like tidying your environment, environmental mastery? Does well-being look like positive relationships with others, calling a friend you haven't had the chance to talk to in a while? Does well-being look like personal growth? Is it listening to your favorite podcasts or reading a book? But actually carve out the time in your schedule. I'm old school. I do paper and pencil, and I color code things with like work goals and mind or body goals and well-being, dates with myself, so to speak. And it doesn't even have to be for that long, it can be 15 minutes, but notice what it looks like when that comes up. Is that something that you are as dedicated to as a 15-minute Zoom call that you have an appointment with somebody else? Just notice if you actually, hold that accountability with yourself, or if you don't, and wonder why. Be curious about it. Just like we collect data and evidence for our students, if you're making a behavior improvement plan or like the FBA BIP and the frequency data, is it harder to have this time for yourself on a Monday versus a Friday? Is mornings easier or more challenging than the afternoons or evenings?
I love that. Sorry. And I love that in the sense that, self-care or, progress for me will look different than progress for you. So you're saying really the first step is just take some time to yourself and notice, open yourself up to noticing things. What's your last word of wisdom before we say goodbye to everyone?
My last word of wisdom is that when you prioritize your happiness, your mental health, your well-being, it's the best thing you can do for those around you. That basic human needs extend to those who teach and lead just as much as those basic needs extend to those who we teach.